Okay, ladies and gentlemen, the Roval is in the books, and we'll start the show here in just a little bit. We're going to share the thread, and we'll get started here in just a moment. All right. Hope you all enjoyed that. There was no shortage of stuff to talk about. We'll certainly cover that. Oh dear. Just saw the Twitter thing with Bubba Wallace throwing water in Alex Bowman's face on pit road. We have that to talk about too. So we'll go ahead and jump into that. This show is live. Watch and join in. Join in. All right. Doot. And hello, everyone. So in the background, since the Roval is relatively new to the circuit, the video that we have in the background is the 1998 the Save Mark Cragen 350, the first race with the without the carousel on the track as you're seeing on the screen. The reason for that is going to be mentioned shortly. I got a bit of an announcement to make as part of the video here today. And okay, we got the thread put up here. There we go. Okay, excellent. Okay, so unofficially, pending the results from technical inspection, Chase Elliott is your winner today at the Roval. Alex Bowman bumps his way into the playoffs there with a spirited charge to second place, which is where he was going to start before he had had to get sent to a backup car there and charged his way back up the field right where he needed to be. And 3.016 seconds, the unofficial margin of victory between Chase and Bowman. But of course, the last place battle is the theme for today, and the last place finisher of the race was Eric Jones. Which was a surprising turn of events there. In the early laps there, we had a number of drivers sent to the back of the field, as well as Bowman there for the issue with the backup car, and so. That's where, let me get my notes pulled up here, where all of this started in the event. So, come on. Let's get this all worked out here. All right. And Bowman himself ended up having a big role in the last place battle at the beginning of it, not just for the penalty for the backup car to begin with, but also getting dropped to the back of the field. Initially, it was Joe Nemechek and Reed Sorensen at the back of the field. Nemechek and Sorensen falling to the back of the field before the start of the race. Nemechek just end up slotting in with Sorensen there as well. But on the second lap, Bowman spun through the chicane and had to make a pit stop. He originally had no drive-through, and then he did. It looked like he was about to lose a lap, but then it turned out that he didn't. And that brings up the issue of the officiating from the race here, certainly, with all these different incidents that were happening, some that drew yellows, some that didn't draw yellows. We'll get into that as well. Alex Bowman he completed his pass through after 6 laps. He was told at that point that he had among the top 3 fastest laps on the track. The next contender for the last place battle was Corey LaJoie. LaJoie looked like he spun out at one point, at least when they did a little smaller screen tracking Bowman's progress through the field. I could have sworn I saw the 32 car spun off the track there, and then he was trying to get back up. It turned out that they were talking about a fuel system issue, an issue with the fuel cell, about replacing that. Apparently, the team only had a fuel cell that was designed not for road courses, just for regular tracks instead. They ended up tracking it down to an issue on the actual part of the fuel cell that was ended up replaced under one of the cautions later on. Had 2 crew members that were working underneath the trunk there to get that car back out. Driver didn't smell fuel in the car. That was definitely something that the team was trying to wonder what was happening. But then he comes down pit road. Timmy Hill briefly held last place during the pit stops. LaJoie took off. Reed Sorensen took over last place, but at the same time, Ross Chastain slowed down. He had an electrical issue on his car, either the alternator or the battery. The crew was debating about that at the time. Chastain's car was going very slow through the backstretch chicane. Car pulled off down to the apron, and he pulled down to the inside. Regardless, NASCAR threw the green flag and restarted the race with the car still there. Now, fortunately for him, and unfortunately for those involved, you then had the accident in turn 1 that ended up eliminating Eric Jones from the race. Damaged several of the other contenders up there. and that's where Jones suffered his damage. Jones ends up coming back in. Looked like he had just had a little bit of damage to the left front, and left rear. Turned out to be more severe than that. Chastain comes in. He loses 2 laps for the electrical issue, gets back out there, whereas Jones ends up pulling the first car of the pole behind the wall, and he is done for the day. He was officially out by lap 29, and that was a short day for him. Back-to-back last-place finishes for the first time for him in his Cup Series career, and he gets knocked out of the playoffs in the first round for the second straight year. An unfortunate situation because last place finishes ended up having a critical role in both those abbreviated runs. Last year, he won the pole at Las Vegas to start the playoffs, ends up getting collected in somebody else's accident. He's unable to recover in the next 2 rounds and then misses the next round. This time around, he was recovering well at Richmond, getting all the points that he needed to get. But then there was an issue with the rear toe end. The car is disqualified, ended up being the first disqualification we've had on the show here. And then put him into a must-win situation here at the Roval, and then had all that happen today, and ultimately getting eliminated from the race at that point. So Eric Jones, unofficially your last place finisher, again, pending the disqualification results or inspection results that we're waiting here. So nothing firm on that yet. Reed Sorensen, your next to last place finisher with electrical issues on the number 77 Spire Motorsports machine. Josh Bilicki had a suspension issue. Specifically an issue with a track bar mount that fractured in the back of the car. It seemed like a lot of drivers are having problems with that, both on the Cup side and the Xfinity Series side. But Bilicki was knocked out with that issue. Kyle Busch listed as a suspension issue, but of course they were having a whole lot of problems before that. Had a flat, I believe it was a left front tire earlier on. And it looked like when he had that tire issue, it looked like it was a lot more of a suspension issue at that point because the wheel was actually kind of rocking back and forth, similar to what we saw with Brad Keselowski later in the race. Kyle Busch, under that red flag, just pulled his car back up the wrong way, up pit road and into the garage area, done for the day. And you can hardly blame him with the heat that I'm sure they were all dealing with there at the track. And we'll talk about that as well. Continuing issue for the rest of this year, but especially prominent at the short tracks and the road courses this season. Rounding out the group was Garrett Smithley, who had an axle fracture towards the end of the race. Also dropped some rear end grease on the track that forced the red flag that put Kyle Busch behind the wall. And Smithley rounded out the bottom 5 in the running order there. Again, still pending the results from technical inspection, and a lot of crazy stuff going on there. So yeah, the officiating is definitely something I want to kind of talk to kind of lead up with that there. Definitely issues with what does and does not warrant a caution. Now, this was brought up even by a lot of the media guys that were over at the track there. It seemed that there wasn't going to be such a thing as a local caution at any point. And you had situations where there were drivers that were spun out under very similar circumstances. One would draw a yellow and one wouldn't. The issue of Ryan Preece getting spun out early in the backstretch chicane, stopping in the middle of it, apparently clearly out of harm's way, and yet that draws a caution. You had Matt Tiff that spun out through the dirt. You got a couple of other cars were collected or nearly collected in the process there. That didn't draw a yellow. And then you had the issue with Ricky Stenhouse Jr. in the backstretch chicane again, and him spinning out. Nobody else involved, nobody else near him. He keeps going, and that draws a caution. Local cautions have been kind of an issue for, long time here. In another race at Sears Point back in 2003, I think you could probably trace it back to this, if not a time before that. Robbie Gordon, when he won at Sears Point, he was sizing up Kevin Harvick for the lead when a caution was coming out. And there was an issue over, I believe, in turn 10, and Robbie was setting up a pass on Harvick going into turn 11, and Harvick thought that there was a local caution that he wasn't able to pass him, but Robbie completed the pass and ultimately went on to dominate the rest of the race there, holding off Jeff Gordon to win. In a situation like that, you see that it was a very different approach to what a local caution is, and perhaps the reason since then is the reason NASCAR just kind of phased it out. I think there's a lot of things that NASCAR has phased out over the years that maybe we're wondering if we're done deliberately or just as an oversight. Whether that be the issues with the lack of local cautions or lacks of reasons that would drop other drivers out of the race, as you see Jerry Nadeau run off course there in the first couple corners, and Jeff Gordon pulling off to a lead in the 1998 Series Point race. It's there are things that have gone by the wayside that they make very public, We see this all the time with racing to the caution flag. Oftentimes in a rule situation there. But what we've talked about in the past, like when you don't see did not start anymore in the lineups, even if a driver literally didn't start the race. You don't see quit listed, and for start and park drivers, they always list a mechanical reason that the driver fell out. Uh, these are things that are kind of phased in and out, and it really changes the complexion of everything. So not exactly sure what the reason is, but maybe hopefully that something gets reevaluated. I don't know. I'm going to be very interested when the results get posted to see what the percentage of laps completed were under caution versus the race, because it felt like about half distance. But what we saw during the race was actually pretty exciting, and the burnout that Chase Elliott did in the turn one barrier was certainly a good way to cap it off there. And we were just kind of playing around here, watching this during that, and saying like, look, like it's Chase looks like he's gunning it on this restart. He's trying to drive it right in the barrier, and then he ended up doing it. But I don't know whether it's like the strength of the noses of these cars, or the way it plays out or anything. But it was interesting that he didn't get as much damage as, say, Preston Pardus did in the Xfinity Series practice, or some of the other drivers we saw struggle in practice and qualifying leading up to the race. I think that helped just as much as anything. I don't know whether it just had more reinforcement in the nose of the car, or he just managed to slow it down well enough before hitting it. But given the severity of the impact, I was surprised that it was as little as it was, and he got back out there again. As you now see Ron Hornaday Jr. wrecking in the S's at Sears Point. I believe, if I remember correctly, that was number 17 car. That was when Tim Beverly bought up Darrell Waltrip's team, and what was ultimately became the 10-10-3-4-5 car the next year that Rich Bickle drove. But a little bit of history there at the back of the field. But that's always another story for another day as well. But yeah, I mean, a pretty crazy race. It's unfortunate when you have a race that's affected that much by cautions, and it just becomes a series of restarts rather than actually seeing people actually set up for positions and everything. It seemed like even more in the Xfinity race. I mean, there were cautions certainly in that one too, but it didn't seem like they affected the outcome as much as this one certainly did. And we'll talk more about that race as well. But it's unfortunate that everything comes down to just all these technicalities. I mean, Ryan Newman driving a car that was just pummeled all the heck out there, and trying to do the best that he could, ended up locking up the brakes. Was just skirting the edge there of that backstretch chicane, but then that was going to be a penalty for him. Let's see, unofficially, where does he show up in the results? I think he was 16th at the finish. Probably further back than that. No, it's just 32nd now. Credited with being, let's see, it's a tail end of the longest line there, tail end of the lead lap. Not quite. He's ahead of Daniel Hemrick in that regard. 33 cars in the lead lap. Hemrick, I thought, was going to be a really big story in this one. I mean, obviously, him being released for Tyler Reddick at the end of this year, but it seemed like they were actually going to have something happen with him, because you remember in this race last year, he practiced well, qualified well, one of his first ever starts in this the number 8 car, and ultimately didn't have like the best run, but was definitely had a presence out there in the event. Unfortunately for him, this time around ends up about the 33rd spot. Had some pretty good damage to the rear of the car there. Daniel Suarez collected an accident there at the end of the race there, just barely averted the race ending under caution. Suarez in the 34th spot. David Reagan got some damage in the incident with Ryan Newman, the infield portion of the track. But one thing you really have to wonder, and certainly hope, this coming forward, this goes full cycle back to the issue of heat, the issue of the heat that's trapped in the cars. This was touched on a bit during the broadcast, but it again reminds me back to Sears Point, talking with Parker Kligerman and some of the other competitors there at the back of the field. These smaller teams, they can't afford a proper cool suit for these drivers. And as I mentioned on Twitter, it's not just a matter of buying the suit. It's also having a full-time staff member there that maintains the suit and makes sure that it's working properly, make sure it's properly cleaned. It apparently requires so much work that that you can't just have existing staff members do it. You have to have like somebody that's specialized in maintaining these things, and that's a clear cost barrier between these big teams and these small teams. And a lot of times, such as Parker Kligerman, who was telling me about this, these small teams, they only have to work with just ice packs and just throwing stuff in their suits, and that's the old school way that didn't even work back in this race back in 1998. I mean, we just had the anniversary of Ricky Rudd's amazing comeback winning at Martinsville when his cool system failed and they tried to pour water down him, and then the water fried the back of him there in the car, and he barely got to the finish. And that was with the passenger side window open. Nowadays, everybody's just, look at these numbers and saying, oh, well, look at that, 114 degrees, 120 degrees. Like, look at that number go up. These drivers, especially at the back of the field, are going through extreme burdens out there to try to stay out there. It's more so than it's traditionally been in the past. Heat in the cockpit has always been an issue. You always hear about Bobby Allison practicing for races at Dover by driving around with the heater on and the windows rolled up in the middle of the summer. That's one thing. But these competitors, even in the physical shape that they're in, and with a lot of these competitors being a lot younger drivers out there, there's a lot that they go through these days, and the new rules package mandating that passenger side window hasn't been a help. But we see this more at the short tracks and the road courses, and we have seen this with a lot of the small teams. I believe it was Josh Bilicki at Bristol had to park his car because of heat exhaustion, which is the very same issue that struck down Cody Ware at Sears Point this summer. And Ware again this weekend actually was swapped out of his car in the Xfinity race yesterday, and Stephen Parsons finished off the race for him. Ware was originally entered to run the Cup race as well, but he got swapped out for J.J. Yaley as he's still recovering from that as well. And again, in our small teams like Rick Ware Racing, teams like B.J. McLeod's team, all these other programs in the back of the field, the Gaunt brothers, like with Parker Kligerman, that's the separation there. And it's a serious issue, and it's hopefully something that gets addressed in the future. I don't know if there's a way that that NASCAR can help out with that, if it's just a matter of getting rid of that passenger side window, if it's a matter of making the cool suits less cost prohibitive, if there's some way that they can do that. I'm not sure how that works out or anything, but something has to be examined on that, because just giving these drivers a water bottle that they could slam in an instant during a red flag is not going to really offset that entirely. I mean, that's that may have worked. I mean, they were doing that back at Sears Point back in 1999 when they had a red flag for Ward Burton's accident back there, and again under different rules packages and everything else. And these short tracks and these road courses, the most physical races that they go through. And when you have unseasonable warmth, like apparently it was like in Charlotte this past weekend, that becomes even more important. So I hope all the rest of the field is okay. I mean, the competitors there, just from what I'm, little I've been hearing on the social media aspect of that, but that's definitely a story to keep following in the weeks ahead. Hopefully the weather starts turning around and we don't see as much of that coming up here. Yeah, NASCAR distributes the Hans device to all teams. Why not do the same for cool suits? Exactly. Yeah, and Casey Kane, you mentioned that as well. Ultimate 23 Dragon, exactly. The Kane situation, I think that should have been really shocking there. The fact that his heart rate was so high that he couldn't drink water. I mean, that's extremely dangerous. I mean, I work in the emergency room. We actually had some unseasonably hot weather ourselves this past Thursday, without going into anything too detailed on it. We had a real uptick in patients coming in because it was a situation where you had a lot of people that were dealing with that. I mean, and I can't go into any more detail than that, but it's a very serious issue. And if it's just a situation where you just have people that are just out in the world, that's one thing. If it's people out there driving these cars for 3-4 hours at a time, and they don't have that aspect. I mean, you heard about actually Michael McDowell in his own emergency room visit was brought up in there that he had kidney stones that he was dealing with, and still got back out there. Was fifth fastest in happy hour. Was fast in qualifying, and looked like good run kind of slipped away from him at the end. His car looked pretty beat up coming to the finish there. I mean, these guys are athletes. These drivers are all athletes and doing the very best they can, but heat stroke and heat exhaustion, that's nothing to play with. That's something that, I mean, you hear about it in football when they had a lot of those players that were passing out, and in some more serious cases passing away. We're just, having not enough fluids in their system, or just heat exhaustion out there. That's something that NASCAR needs to take very seriously. And I'm hoping that I'm hoping again that everybody's okay out there. But even Alex Bowman, you saw him get out of the car there and was just slumped back down next to it there. These guys are in great shape and doing the best they can. And he's one of the drivers for Hendrick Motorsports, a team that can afford cool suits and the best equipment that they can. And he's still that exhausted. Just imagine what's happening back over in Premium Motorsports or Spire Motorsports or those guys back there, Rick Ware's team. You certainly hope things are, turning around for those guys. But looking at the results here, Michael McDowell, the 12th place finish for him, a great run for him. I mean, it was really, that's better than I thought he was doing. I saw him just kind of sliding around there at the end when they were counting down the rest of the field there. So great run for him. Matt DiBenedetto, again, we talked about this in the past. When also we talk about heat and heat exhaustion, you always see Matt DiBenedetto rise up to the challenge there, as he did at Sears Point, as he did at Bristol years ago, as he did at Bristol this past August. He's just always been in the thick of it there. An 11th place finish for him. Looked like he was going to get a top 10 there at the end. Didn't quite shake out for him, but an interesting deal there. Ty Dillon, very quietly, a 15th place finish. Good run for him. It was surprising to see Martin Truex struggle as much as he did, given his dominance at the road courses. I know he didn't win Watkins Glen and lost to Chase Elliott that we saw won today, but as they reported in the broadcast there, he's been outstanding at these courses and should have won this race last year. So it's not even a matter of the Roval throwing him a loop necessarily. But ultimately ended up slipping back to the 7th place finish after running second for a lot of the third stage there and dropping back in the lineup. Kurt Busch with heavy damage ends up getting a 20th place finish there at the end of the day. A real rough afternoon for him. Ross Chastain, who, again, I don't remember if we went into this already. Actually, we did. We talked about the electrical issues he had in the chicane. For the car shutting down, having the battery issues, losing all that time. He ends up finishing on the lead lap in the 22nd spot. We just had that many cautions that a driver like that was 2 laps down can get back on the lead lap and get a good finish. So I guess you take the good with the bad there. But still, it's just a ridiculous number of yellows. I imagine if you had a much faster race there, the heat, it's not going to get any cooler out there, even with the threat of rain in the area. But a different set of circumstances there. Bubba Wallace, after his race-long battle there with Alex Bowman, ends up in the 24th spot. As was reported there, he clearly was not happy with the driver of the number 88 car. I'll be interested to see what happens on that going forward. Timmy Hill was one of 5 drivers who was at least scheduled to run both of the races. Ended up being 4 after Cody Ware didn't run the Sunday race there. But Timmy Hill running in the 30th spot there in the number 66 car. Joe Nemechek in 31st. Good to see the veterans out there just getting the best run that they can, although he was getting caught by Corey LaJoie after his fuel cell issues. Ended up falling back there, him and Sorensen as well, and ended up dropped a few laps back. But Nemechek on the lead lap by the finish of the race, getting his laps back as well. But further back than that, we already talked about the bottom 5 there. Garrett Smithley, Kyle Busch, Josh Bilicki, Reed Sorensen, down to your last place finisher, Eric Jones. So an unfortunate season for Jones, an unfortunate situation there. I think it definitely encourages, I guess, more discussion about if the Roval belongs in the playoffs, if it's just that much of an unpredictability. They always talk about Talladega in the past. Martinsville has really stepped up in terms of being like a complete unknown out there and having unpredictable things happen. I guess it fits in that respect, but it's still unfortunate that it's a situation there with that. But that's looking at the lineup from there. So we'll talk about the Xfinity race here and pull that up. Let me see here. I want to do this right quick. For those of you who haven't seen the actual video yet with NASCAR Man, I highly recommend you check it out. We did a new Truck Series video on Freak, the most prolific Truck Series chassis in, perhaps I would say, at least from the script, the research that NASCAR Man was doing on that video there, probably the most prolific chassis in Truck Series history, if not the history of the sport. You hear about different chassis that were used all the time there. It's actually got brought up a bit in the JD book as well about how old some of JD's chassis were, and not knowing, if it was a Childress chassis from back in the 80s, if it was the the early '80s or the mid '80s out there. To have a more modern example of a Truck Series chassis from 1998 that was just used for the restrictor plate races, that was run as recently as last fall with Chris Fontaine before it was wrecked as hard as it was. Definitely check out the video. Freak, the truck that wouldn't die. Video by NASCAR Man, narrated by myself. An outstanding video there. Really cool footage in there to talk about just how successful that chassis was. And a little detail that I didn't notice, you'll see it in the video. When Chris Fontaine was running it towards the end of its career, it actually says the name Freak on the back of it. But definitely check out the video if you haven't seen. It's a really cool story. Details like that about teams and drivers really are interesting to me because there's a story behind everything out there. That's why it gets aggravating to me with these broadcasts that only focus on the playoff contenders and nothing else, because there's so much you can talk about. There's a history behind the chassis that are run each week. There's a history behind the drivers that are running out there, a history behind the different teams, as you now see Jerry Nadeau plow up the hill there in the S's. One thing that you think about in the Xfinity Series side, this actually be a good transition for that. It looked like, I can't confirm this, it looked like the number 90 car that Alex Labbe was having his breakout run in looked just like the car that Chris Dyson ran at Mid-Ohio, that ran into traffic and crunched the nose of the car up. It seemed to have the exact same paint scheme. I don't know if it was a backup to Dyson's car or if it was the exact same car that just banged the dents out of it. But that would be an interesting story to hear, because then that gives that story greater context. So again, yeah, there's a story behind every driver, behind every team, behind every chassis, and behind every event. And the more use you make of those stories, you get something as interesting as the story of Freak and things like that. Talking with Jennifer Jo Cobb back at Mosport over the summer, she was saying the same thing, that she has a chassis that she just uses at the plate races, and she's had for a number of years. And when they got to the point where she only had a couple of chassis left, after Daniel Sassnet wrecked one of her trucks at Michigan, she couldn't use that plate truck. She just had to kind of still set that aside and then run the same truck she ran at Bristol and Mosport, and getting the best run that she could get under the circumstances. So that's always an interesting thing you have. And in the Truck Series, where you only have 2 races that you run the plate tracks on, it encourages trucks to be run that long. And who knows, maybe there's another Freak out there that's being run about as often or about as long as it's been. I don't know if it's been as successful at it, but again, I don't want to spoil too much of the video there. If you haven't seen it, definitely check out NASCAR Man's Freak. It's a very good video. I really enjoyed recording the script on that, and hopefully we're doing some more videos on that coming up very soon as well. Let's see. Taking a look here. Let me get the Xfinity results. And still haven't forgotten about that announcement. We're going to get that here in a little bit. I want to do the Xfinity race wrap up here, won by AJ Allmendinger. They say that we don't really have as many of the road course ringers in NASCAR anymore, but they seem very alive and well in the Xfinity Series. And one of them, of course, went to victory lane, AJ Allmendinger. Your last place finisher turned out to be J.J. Yaley. The results show that he was out after 5 laps with an accident, but it wasn't that accident that actually put him in last, the initial part of the race. You had a number of teams that were brought to the back of the field, among them Bailey Curry, making his return after his suspension at Bristol, driving the number 38 car for RSS Racing. He was up back at the back of the field there, along with the number 13 with Chad Fincham. They were at the back of the field until Yaley was involved in some damage there in the first lap, running the back of a couple of cars there, the number 78 from BJ McLeod. A lot of damage to his car. However, soon after that, you had David Starr stalling on the apron, much like the issue with Ross Chastain in the Cup race today. Starr was actually your last place finisher for most of that race. I apologize we didn't do live tweets from that, but was definitely paying attention to that there and catching up to that. And we'll have a full write-up on this race, because what it turned out to be is that we had David Starr at the back of the field, multiple laps down. It looked like he was going to be out with the issue in the drivetrain there. But it turned out that the Jimmy Means team just never say die there. They got the 52 car back out there, 39 laps down. In the end of beginning of stage 3, get the 52 car back out there. And at that point, then past J.J. Yaley and dropped the 78 car to the back of the field. So while Yaley has now finished last in both Xfinity Series races at the Roval, it was not something that was uncontested there. It was definitely a battle between 52 and the 78 there, as it turned out. And a great job by David Starr. He actually finished the race under power, just on the very edge of the bottom five, finishing in the 34th position. The rest of the bottom five, Fincham and Bailey Curry, both parked their cars in the early laps. Tommy Joe Martins was running very well. He was up to about the 11th spot in stage one there. He ends up falling out with suspension issues. That drops him down to the 35th spot. David Starr again rounding out the bottom five. Bad luck for Justin Haley as well. He was in the mix for last place for a little bit there when they had the problem with the rear suspension of the car, having to weld the bracket back in there for the rear track bar, getting him back out. Haley ended up salvaging a 31st place finish. Ryan Sieg with issues on his car as well, down to the 30th spot. They're now in a must-win situation for Dover next week, and different situation for those drivers. A couple other drivers that were impressive, though. We mentioned Joe Nemechek earlier, driving the Premium Motorsports car in today's race. Driving for Mike Harmon, he ended up getting a 22nd place finish there, so great run for him. The number 74 car. Joey Gase was one of the many teams that was sent to the back. He ends up getting a 21st place position. Brandon Brown and his teammate Will Rogers were doing really well until Rogers got spun towards the end of the race there, I believe on the last lap, if not towards the end of the race there. 68 and the 86 both having good runs out there, so good runs for both of them. Timmy Hill with a top 20 finish in his 300th career NASCAR start. So good job for him. Again, mentioning him doing double duty with the number of the other drivers out there. Lawson Aschenbach was really impressive, running in the top 10 in stage 3. Aschenbach, for those of you who don't know much about him out there, he was competing in what was the Pirelli World Challenge, driving for the Camaros factory team out there, driving these pinstriped Camaros out there. It was really good in that division. That series has since gone through some changes, and his career has taken some different trajectories as well. Driving for JD Motorsports without any sponsorship. Back in Mid-Ohio, I believe it was, he had that really dizzying-looking paint scheme out there. It was Mid-Ohio or Road America. It was one or the other. He had a car with a bunch of like crazy designs on it, looked like zebra stripes or something. But he just had a simple red paint scheme this week around, and ended up getting hooked off the nose of Ray Black Jr., dropped him out of the top 10. But he still salvaged a 14th place finish, picking his way through the pack. So a good run for Aschenbach. But we mentioned Alex Labbe earlier. It got mentioned on Twitter by other users there as well, that he had actually skipped the season finale for the NASCAR Pinty Series, where he's been struggling a lot this year. He was 6th in points coming into this one. He had problems at Mosport when we were up there, had some mechanical issues. They were trying to get the car back out there, but ran out of laps. Labbe has also been scaled back to a part-time effort this year, losing the ride in the 36 car to his teammate Josh Williams. Labbe making the best out of the number 90 car run. He didn't have a sponsor at Darlington, had a solid finish out there. But again, finishing in the 6th spot, the same spot where he started. He was second among the non-playoff drivers in the field behind the race winner, A.J. Allmendinger. Great run for him, great run for the number 90 team. That's definitely the kind of thing you like to see out there. And these road courses have the potential of having great runs like that. Jeremy Clements, the 11th spot there. Again, your Road America winner from a couple of years ago, continuing to show some promise there in the road courses. And it's almost to the point where he's kind of in Ryan Sieg's position, where you kind of overlook him having these great runs, because now it's kind of expected. He's expected to be that consistent and being the best of one of those teams that's just exclusively running in the Xfinity Series side. So great to see him get a good run out there, and further back the rest of that group there as well. So looking back here at the results, we'll check into that. And we do this. Can I do this from here, or do I need to open a different window for it? Let me see if I can do this. Bear with me, folks. I'm going to try to test this out. If you have any questions in the chat there from this weekend's action, anything, I know I've kind of buzzed through that pretty quickly. I'm sure there's no doubt plenty of storylines to cover from this race, both through practice, qualifying, and action. This is a race that we're going to have to definitely cover one of these days. I'm not sure if we're going to be we'll see about next year. I'm not sure. I'm not sure on 100% there, but we're still figuring out our schedule for next season. But we'll get that figured out here pretty soon and get an announcement on that. Let me do. Can I do this? Can I do this? Let me figure this out. Checking out here. Oh, is it going to let me do that? Nope, I don't know if it's going to let me do that. YouTube is very hard to navigate live, so we're going to do that. Alrighty. Let me go ahead and jump into the announcement here. The reason that we have the 1998 Save Mark Cragen 350 on the screen there is because I have another video that's going to be posted. If you're already in the NASCAR Patreon, the video is already live, and you can go ahead and check it out right now. But I'm going to make a formal announcement about this at the moment here. The next video is actually on Jerry Nadeau, who was my favorite driver from back in the late 90s. I was a big fan of Derek Cope and Ricky Rudd were also drivers that I followed at the time period. But Nadeau was the first driver that I really followed from very early in his career, from 1998 through the time that his career was so unfortunately cut short at Richmond in 2003. And in continuing the series, the commentary series that's been posted on my channel, I put together the script back in July to do a video on Nadeau, and had to kind of shelve it for a little bit there. We didn't just get it finished until just this past week, and it is now the longest video that I've actually ever put together. It's just short of 48 minutes long, with a lot of footage there from the races, a lot of stuff I've collected over the years, and stuff even from the fan club that I was a member of from 1999 through 2004, actually, a year after his accident. So if you're in the NASCAR Patreon at any level, you have access to that video now. If you do not have access, if you're not in the Patreon, the video is going to be, we're going to do a live premiere test. We're going to use that YouTube premiere function, and we're going to do a premiere tomorrow night at 5 p.m. Pacific or 8 p.m. Eastern. And so you'll be able to do a chat for that and participate in that as well. So if you're not in the Patreon, you can definitely check that out. And we'll have that video in there for you. And I know Bad Bookie, I see. Yeah, I know. You know, I saw your thing on there with Jerry Nadeau and all that, but that was the thing. That's definitely something to kind of talk about there with it. You know, his career. You know, I know he had a lot of crashes and stuff in his career, and certainly what happened to him in this race. You could probably see the beginnings of NASCAR in the moment in this, but that's all discussed there in the video. So it was a lot of fun to do, a lot of good memories, a lot of rough memories in there. But 5 p.m. tomorrow on September 30th. We're going to air that on YouTube. That'll be the premiere there. That'll be publicly available. And it definitely join in the chat there on that too. It'll be the first time that I've ever done video premiere thing. So we're going to give that a try and then hopefully do that for future installments. So big week with that. So we had the video on Freak with NASCAR Man. We got that one tomorrow. And we got some other videos kind of planned up there going ahead. So we'll jump up there. Which heartbreak was worse, 1998 or 2002? Oh, 2002, easily. I won't spoil it too much because I definitely go into both those races in the video. They definitely feature prominently in there. 2002 was gut wrenching. I would say one of the worst losses that I've ever personally witnessed, and certainly the worst one that I've actually been a part of, like actually being at the track there. I was already I could already still remember that 44 car and like trying to wonder when the last time the 44 even won in the series. The Georgia Pacific paint scheme is definitely one of the other ones I was a big favorite of. He had fallen out of his ride at that point and was swapped in there as a road course ringer. Wasn't expected to really compete. That would have been amazing. And NASCAR Man actually plug him again on this. He did a great article on that, I believe, just this past year, talking about the context of that finish. So another thing you definitely want to check out there. But yeah, that video will be talking about that, talking about 2002, talking about the other close calls in his career. We got a lot of footage that we put in there. Big and the full link in the description there of all the links to all the videos that were used in there. A lot of interesting content. It was really fun to kind of do the research on this one. A lot of it I felt like I was able to kind of dig up from memory because I've replayed that so many times in my mind. I actually did a NASCAR feature on Jerry Nadeau's last place finish at Texas in 2000 that's on the website that you can check out as well. I feel like I've gone over that story over and over again, but the video really kind of helps kind of put that in greater context. And I'm definitely anxious to get your guys' thoughts on it. So we'll have that up there again on the YouTube channel. Just look up Rockbeard on YouTube and you'll get that. I'm trying to set up the preview. I'm trying to set up the premiere from here. I'm just trying to figure out the way to do that properly here. We'll get into some trivia here too as well, and we'll catch up on that and get that all set up for you. But I do have it planned for 5 p.m. on 5 p.m. tomorrow night Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern, and that'll be really cool. So again, let's jump into everything here. Did I overlook? I'm looking at the Xfinity results. Did I miss anything else from there? Nemechek's run was really cool. Preston Pardis, I thought that was really impressive when they had to replace the front of the car and they had like what looked like a hand painted number 43 on the nose of the car. Had a great run going. Unfortunately, got spun there towards the end. Ended up 27th in the lineup. But combined with William Saki following him around at the Xfinity race at Road America earlier this year when he qualified so well, unfortunately, the race ended up shaking out not so well for him in that one. But good runs for him, and hopefully we'll see more of his family's team and that driver in the time ahead here. But let's see. Can I do? Okay, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. Okay, I'm not gonna make you guys sit through that while I figure this out on the computer. Okay, so it's a little bit blurry on here, but we got first part of the 1998 St. Mark Cragen 350 up here. You see Tom Hubert in that second white car right there, the Bradford White machine. That was always a big surprise whenever they came back out west. You talk about teams that maybe don't get a whole lot of attention out there. They actually qualified really well at Las Vegas. I think it was like third one time in '99. They used to run Pontiacs, and then they ran Fords in '98. Or it was the opposite. I think they ran Pontiacs in '99, and they ran Fords in '98. But he had a good run out there. That was a scheme that very simple. I mean, the appropriately with the sponsor Bradford White, just plain white car with a couple streaks on it. But Hubert later in his career would end up having the unfortunate reputation with the 3 straight last place finishes at the St. Mark Cragen 350 from 2004 through 2006, driving for Kirk Shelmerdine. The last of those was a very hard first lap accident with Shelmerdine's number 27 car there that was involved with Sterling Marlin. We also did a feature on that at the website as well that you can check out there. But always anxious to already count down the days till Sears Point again this year, and a lot of good memories from that as well. So let's see, where are we? Oh, we're buzzing right through this. We got about halfway to the call here. What's our timer look like here? And we'll see how close we are getting to technical inspection results. Okay, good. We're about an hour into the wait here. And let's, hang on. Let me get Pockrus's Twitter page up here. Are we going to get a couple of disqualifications in a row? I mean, I posted the thing earlier today that pointed out that 2 of the most recent disqualifications that resulted in the last place finish were both in the fall race at Charlotte. Of course, not on the Roval, of course, on the Oval. And potentially 3 in a row because, as pointed out there, I believe Walt Reed pointed this out, that you had Richard Petty in 1983 having the wrong side tires on the car and also the engine that was too big. Probably would have been and should have been disqualified from that race, but it was Richard Petty and it was towards winning his 200th race and all that stuff. Ended up not resulting that way, but it very well could have been that the 3 most recent disqualifications that resulted in last place finishes in the Cup Series, that's a mouthful, were all in this fall race at Charlotte. Buddy Baker, Bobby Hillin, and Richard Petty. But then this time around, you have the situation there with Eric Jones. So we'll see what the situation is. Hang on. Let's get you up here. All right, Pockrus's page there. Hey, how does everybody feel about Ricky Stenhouse Jr. being out of the number 17 car at the end of this year? I mean, there's definitely been a bit of shuffling here. I know Rick Allen doesn't like the term silly season, but I think my issue on that, I'll go ahead and jump into this too. My issue is less about silly season being a pejorative term necessarily, but more being kind of an outdated concept. Because as you can see from like the entry list articles we do, silly season is every single week. Every week there's drivers getting swapped around. There's sponsors getting swapped around. Silly season isn't the thing anymore because it's gradually happening all year. And I guess we've seen this in the past where it's gradually gotten longer and longer. That it used to be like, it seemed to me in the past, like back in this race days, like if you got to the Southern 500, that's when you started hearing about the plans for the next year. That's when you started hearing about these different teams swapping ends and swapping out and everything. Because it was about the same time as you started hearing more about the championship push and getting to the end of the year. Now, then pretty soon you started hearing about these announcements in August, and then July, and then June, and then all of a sudden it's all year. Some of these things are planned, of course. I mean, you have different plans where, like JR Motorsports or the number 99 at BJ McLeod's team, they plan out that they're going to have different drivers run at different times. But other times, these deals come together at the last second. They swap somebody in. So it really is like a weekly basis, almost a daily basis at this point. So, obviously, you have the silly season side at J-Ski and everything. And that's why they have to do Twitter and stuff nowadays with everybody else, because it is a moment by moment thing. So maybe it's silly season itself is kind of outdated. But the spirit of it is still there, because now it's every single moment. And you could say it's a product of social media, or a product of the rising cost of the sport and less predictability. I mean, it'd be great if you could see, some of these paint schemes every week, like see the Kodak car every week or the Skittles car. But unfortunately, it's just not the world we're living in at the moment. The Ally Bank one is just about the only one that we see on a week-to-week basis, and even they change the paint scheme up here and there. Like obviously their throwback scheme at Darlington. So still no call on Pockrace's page here, so we're going to jump into the trivia portion of the show here. But let's see here. I hope I still remember the thing there from both before. Okay, so we're going back to the Trivial Pursuit one again this week, and because of that, it's got the different categories. So let's do a pick for categories again this time. Let me go here. We'll review this again. Which ones we have? Okay, we don't want to do that or that. We're going to just do the questions and answers. Okay, so here again are the categories. The categories are, make this Jeopardy style: NASCAR, pits, teams, tracks, drivers, and the wild card. So let's see here. So here's the different ones here. So again, NASCAR, pits, teams, tracks, drivers, and the wild card. So which category you guys want? Go ahead and mention on there. We have one vote for the wild card. Do we have any other guesses here or any other picks where we start this one off? Drivers there. Okay. Heard anything about H2 Motorsports? Nothing new on my end on that. I haven't really pulled any connections on that. I've heard nothing since the Circuit City car was supposed to run at Darlington, and that was a real shame. I was getting ready to take some good pictures of that there, but nothing new on that. And nothing new on Abica Motorsports or NY Racing Team either. The trail has turned decidedly cold on all three of those. Certainly hope for the best on anything with those, but not exactly sure. We are still looking to do Phoenix next month and try to get some more coverage from there. Nothing official on that. Haven't heard one way or the other on our credential request, but we'll hopefully get some more news on that. Let's start with the wild card, then we'll go to drivers there after that and start with that. So we'll do wild card here first off. Alrighty. So our first trivia question to start this off: what tire changer got to drive in a Featherlight race in 1997? Okay, here we go. Oh, this is really a wild card question. Okay, what tire changer got to drive in a Featherlight race in 1997? Man, they were part-time. And yeah, I mean, all three of those teams, Abica, the NY Racing Team, and the H2 Motorsports, they were part-time. But that's the unfortunate part. You have these part-time teams, they can disappear just as quickly as anything else, because then they think, oh, well, maybe they're just not going to run a race for a few weeks. But there's that. What tire changer got to drive in a Featherlight race in 1997? We have a guess for Steve Park. Any other guesses for a tire changer that got to run a Featherlight race in 1997? We'll get the answer here in just a moment. And the answer is Tom Hubert. How about that? Well, we got full circle with the Bradford White car. Tom Hubert got to drive a Featherlight race in 1997. And I guess he followed that up by running Cup in 1998, the first part of 1999. So how about that? Yeah, Evernham can't. Well, see, it's a good guess too, right around that same time period. Wild card proving exceptionally wild this time. We'll get our next question here. Hang on, let's get the next one. Alrighty. Who performed driving stunts in Speedway, Six Pack, and Thunder in Carolina? Who performed driving stunts in the films Speedway, Six Pack, and Thunder in Carolina? So I guess it would be which driver? Who performed driving stunts in Speedway, Six Pack, and Thunder in Carolina? Which driver? I will conclude that it's which driver because it just says who, but I guess it could be like a team owner later on. Neil Castles, Harry Gant. Any other guesses? The movies Speedway, Six Pack, and Thunder in Carolina had somebody that one common competitor that did driving stunts in all three of those. Yeah, stunts. Stan Barrett. That's another good guess too. There we go. Yeah, driving stunts. It said specifically driving stunts in Speedway, Six Pack, and Thunder in Carolina. Okay, the answer coming up. The answer is Neil Castles. There you go, Maserati 9. You got it, man. There you go. As you can now see, it's Jeff Gordon coming off pit road back in the old Gilligan's Island days. Him, of course, not being on Gilligan's Island, but the main straightaway pits. Alrighty. Okay. Next question here. Let's mix it up, and we'll do a drivers one here. So you had to pick for that as well. Drivers. Okay, here we go. What year did Jeff Gordon win his first Winston Million? What year did Jeff Gordon win his first Winston Million? Clearing the cylinders with a little bit easier one. 1997, we have a guess. We have 1997. I'm sure you are right. 1997 is correct. Of course, beating Jeff Burton in a race that Bill Elliott was dominating. Okay, let's see if we can get a harder one. What former NASCAR Winston Cup champ was 0 for 20 at the Daytona 500 through 1998? Okay, all right. Okay, we're gonna do some easier ones here. What former NASCAR Winston Cup champ was 0 for 20 at the Daytona 500 through 1998? Dale Earnhardt, of course. Okay. It is thrown now. I was wrong about this too. I was gonna say Earnhardt, but look, if you look here, it says Terry Labonte. Terry Labonte, the answer on that one. Through 1998. I guess, okay, it's one of these classic ones where you have to kind of go back and be like, look at which word was used. Was it and or was it or? Through 1998, it was Terry Labonte that was 0 for 20 in the Daytona 500. So how about that? Now talk about a trick question. If you want to make sure nobody wins $1 million on Who Wants to Win a Millionaire, if that's even still on anymore, you would ask a question like that, where one word can single-handedly mess up the answer to the question. That would do it. That threw me off too. I was all ready for that to be an easy one. Let's get another one. Okay. What year in the 70s was Bobby Isaac the NASCAR Winston Cup champion? What year in the 1970s was Bobby Isaac the NASCAR Winston Cup champion? 1970. Yeah, I'm sure you're right. 1970 on that. Yeah, Earnhardt did win in his 20th attempt in 1998. But I guess the way that was phrasing it was like, which one had it was 0 for 20 through 1998. So that would include 1998 when he started on the front row with his brother. And so he had 20 years of trying and then just didn't win it. It's kind of amazing to me. Isn't it amazing to you that Terry Labonte never won the Daytona 500? I mean, that's one of those ones. I mean, it makes sense to me that Rusty Wallace didn't because he hated plate racing and he had terrible wrecks at the super speedways all the way back to like 1983. But Terry Labonte should have won at least one. In 97, he was very good. He was very good in that one. And didn't quite do it. 96 as well. I think he had mechanical issues in that one. And then, of course, in 1990, he was second to Derek Cope after Dale Earnhardt blew a tire. So you had a whole streak of those where, where it was like that. You now see, what is that, John Andretti? That was Jeff Bodine for a second there. The players, the NFL Players Union sponsoring John Andretti in the STP car. So a unique paint scheme there that they would run special paint schemes at Sears Point sometimes, which is always interesting. The Tide Peroxide car still ranks pretty high on my list. And speaking of Jerry Nadeau, the Jetsons car, one of the great Cartoon Network paint schemes, debuted at Sears Point, and they did a great cross promotion there between Cartoon Network and Sprint. So they had like what was it, Astro from the Jetsons holding like a modern cell phone. So you had to tie in between the two. It was great. These are paint schemes you just don't see anymore. I mean, I know they did the SpongeBob cars a few years ago, but I swear the cartoon character paint schemes need to make a comeback. That would really help things. Whoa, just turned off here. Let's turn this thing back on. Okay, here we go. Let's get into our driver's question here. Yes. How many seasons did Richard Petty win more races than any other driver? This is a good one. Okay, so we got a number you got to guess, folks. How many seasons, what number of seasons did Richard Petty win more races than any other driver? So in terms of like a season win total, how many times did Richard Petty's win total outnumber anybody else's in his career? So we have a guess. You have 11. We have 14. Any other guesses on the number? Don't look at it. Don't wait too long to post it because I'm gonna think you're looking it up. 11, 14. We have 20. More races than any other driver. How many seasons did Richard Petty win more races than any other driver? Okay, the answer is 6. Only 6. Now that's amazing. 200 NASCAR victories and spread evenly enough that only 6 times did he win more races than any other driver. Wow. That really puts it. I mean, now I guess on the other hand, too, you could have some seasons where you win like 20 races or something like that, and then you don't have to do that too many times, but still, only 6 times. Yeah, there you go. 27 in one of those years. Exactly. Exactly. So there you go. That seems awfully low. It seems like it would have been at least. I thought Ultimate 23 Dragon. I thought you were right with the 11. That seemed like that was going to be close to a good guess there. Okay, let me switch back to the wild card here. As is this Darrell Waltrip in the one car now? I guess it was because Steve Park got hurt in early '98, and Hornaday was going to be in it. Hornaday actually had a good interview when he talked about that getting swapped into the one car at Darlington and not quite shaken out for him. I guess it was. Yeah, well, it had to be because the 17 car we mentioned earlier was Tim Beverly, and that was formerly the Darrell Enterprises car, and they scaled back at Darlington. 98's a season that sticks out of my mind. I know Gordon dominated that year, but there's a lot of that season I remember really well because, for one thing, I liked the Tauruses. I thought they looked cool. I know a lot of people hate them, but I thought they looked great. There was some interesting stories. Of course, Ricky Rudd's win at Martinsville we mentioned earlier. Great paint schemes too. I mean, that was the golden era. That time there between '98 and I'd say 2002, maybe 2001. Really, that was like they just had some beautiful cars out there in that time period. And in 2002, a lot of those teams kind of started struggling, and then into 2003, and I think that kind of cost the paint schemes a little bit, but that was kind of that deal. Yeah, Jeremy Mayfield, he was the point leader coming into this race. That was the other thing too. Like, I mean, for Gordon being as dominant as he wasn't the point leader until after this race. Oh, who's spinning out there? Oh, Cope. There we go. Derek Cope and the old Bahari racing team. There's another deal there. Whoop. Okay, I thought it froze for a second there. Kodiak Bear. Okay, anyway. All right, here we go. What NASCAR Winston Cup driver's dad was chief steward for the IndyCar series? Now, remember, this thing's from 1998, so don't think about like the Cindrix or anything like that. It would be a different deal. What NASCAR Winston, well, I guess it wouldn't be a Winston Cup driver, but what NASCAR Winston Cup driver's dad was chief steward for the IndyCar series? Wally Dallenbach. Okay, any other guesses here? What Winston Cup driver's dad was chief steward for the IndyCar series? We have Dallenbach, we have Andretti. There we go. There's Gilligan's Island there. There's a throwback. Have to pull off on there and have the disadvantage of having to stop there instead of the main pit road. All right, here we go. The answer, Wally Dallenbach. There we go. Field gets it. Bad booking in Maserati. You got it. Wally Dallenbach's father. Okay. Let's get another wild card question here. Do we have any calls yet? Doesn't look like we have a call at the moment. Inspection typically takes 90 to 120 minutes, especially in this round because all 16 playoff cars get some inspection. So again, no changes on that. So we may be in long haul here, but we'll find our way through that. All righty, let me close that out. And okay, here we go. What was Plucky Edwin Matthews' nickname? What was okay? Are we using an adjective, or are we? Is that actually his first name, like the Tiny Toons character? What was Plucky Edwin Matthews' nickname? Plucky Edwin Matthews. Any guesses on that one? There's something out of left field. So we got Banjo. Are we talking about Banjo Matthews, or let's see? It could be something else. Plucky Edwin Matthews' nickname. Was Banjo Matthews' nickname full name Plucky Edwin Matthews? Okay, I'm gonna look that one up. That can't be true. Let me. Is it in his Wikipedia page? You can at least get close to that. Okay, it says okay. Yeah, I mean spoiling the answer here, but yeah, Banjo. It is Banjo Matthews. It shows Edwin Keith Banjo Matthews here. So I guess Plucky was just an adjective. So so that wasn't part of his name. I'm just gonna say that would be the most random thing ever. But yeah, full name Edwin Keith Banjo Matthews, at least according to Wikipedia, if they're to be believed. Let's see. Okay, yeah, Banjo Matthews. All right, let's get in their wild card here. How old was Lee Petty when he first began racing? How old was Lee Petty, Richard's father, when he first began racing? How old was Lee Petty? Now, I assume it means when he first ran in Winston Cup, but it could be just racing in general. So, think about it either way. It doesn't necessarily have to be of racing age, I suppose, but depends how you want to interpret the question. That's literally how it words it here. How old was Lee Petty when he first began racing? 35 is the first guess. Any other guesses on that? As we're now, oh man, it's really blurry. 66 to go, I think, in the Sears Point race here. 37, 35. Any other guesses on that? How old was Lee Petty when he began racing? We're going to have the answer here in just a moment. 22 is the next guess. Anybody want to test the under or the over? Okay. The answer is 35. Maserati 9 and bad booking. You got it. There we go. Oh, somebody spun out again. Is this when Terry Labonte wrecked? Yep, that's when Terry Labonte wrecked. There he is. I think we're in the main stretch grandstands for this one. I'm going to try again to try to get the premiere set up on here, and at least I can share the link because I want to get that posted sooner rather than later. Certainly not as big of a fan of the YouTube format here. I understand that it used to be simpler, but I remember it still being pretty complicated when I was doing the starting grids years ago. So I don't know. Okay, I don't want that. Where's the... Okay, here. Let me try this. I think I'm hitting the wrong button here. Ooh, Taylor Marty has crunched the car up pretty good there. The rear clip all buckled in there. All right, here we go. There we go. Let's get this. Okay, not that. Let's try this. All right, is this going to work? Let's find out if this works. Man, oh man. See, those hills are treacherous. I'm trying to remember. I mean, I guess there's a lot of clearing out there now because I know they've had some spins in the S's recently where the driver spins out in the S's and they got enough room to at least back into a barrier now. But yeah, I mean, those huge dirt embankments. It's good to hopefully that those went the way of the Dodo because that was could be a really hard hit. Seriously, of course, Jerry's accident you see in that earlier was certainly pretty hard there. Okay, here we go. All right, I want to just set this here. Okay, schedule for a later date. Okay, here we go. Okay, now we got it. Let's do this. Let's make sure it's set to the right time. Oh, come on. And let's do Los Angeles. Okay, local time. Yeah, I want it to be 5 o'clock my time. So make sure it's That's where it needs to be. I can adjust. Hopefully I can adjust this if I don't get this correct. I want to make sure this is right. Schedule for a later date. Okay, we'll give this a try. Okay, there we go. Out in the ether. Let's see if this works. Okay, scheduled September 30th, 5 p.m. Okay. All right, excellent. I think that should work. Now, where does it show up? Does it show up anywhere on here? Anybody else groan during the pre-race to the race today when you saw Chicane? She conquered. Oh, that was something there. Okay, good. The premiere worked. Excellent. Okay, good. Alrighty. So yes, if you go by the YouTube channel, you'll see that it's on there and it's set to a premiere. So we'll give that a try. Okay, great. Good. Yeah, we'll give this a try. I know we're not the biggest YouTube channel out there. I know the bigger ones kind of do this premiere thing more often, but we'll give it a run here on this and then see if that goes well. And here I'm going to do a preview on here. I actually have a little graphic that I'm going to work with on this too. Let me go ahead and post this. Okay. Swerving Irvin in the kitty litter. Yep, there we go. I love that old logo. Isn't that just the greatest? Like, I mean, I like that they brought that back a little bit for the 50th anniversary. So they kind of integrated that logo in there. But I'd like them to just commit to that more fully. Because, I mean, I catch myself saying Sonoma, and I don't like saying that. I like saying Sears Point. I like that. It's like that rule in the Civil War where you have like some battlefields are named for the rivers and some were named for the towns. Like, I mean, it's at Sears Point. That's where the place is. That's what it is. It's like Watkins Glen is near Watkins Glen. And Sears Point is near Sears Point. And the Roval is, well, the exception. So, okay. Yeah, Sears Point. It's still Sears Point. I like you just stay stay that way in my book too. Okay, how does this work? Does this like okay. Interesting. Alrighty. Well, let me do how about this? There we go. I'm just gonna finish posting this on the Twitter page here. I'll post the link here as soon as I get this thing up. Boop. All right, let's generate some buzz. How about that? All righty. There we go. All righty. All right, let's get back to the right page here so you don't have to just see me figure out a computer for 20 minutes. Hey, what's up, Brentanic? How's it going? Welcome aboard, everyone, as we now see Bill Weber tell us what a car is. And we have the 1998 Save Mark Cragen 350 in the background. Big thanks to, I believe it's Smith TV for posting this one. Yeah, Smith TV's version posted on here. These are ignition boxes, I think. And that is something else. Okay. The technical side, I mean, I'm like Tim Richmond that way. The technical side has always eluded me a bit more, which is probably something I got to figure out better. Okay, well, here we go. Figure out better for figuring out when teams are falling out for certain mechanical issues, because I got to be clear about that. You know, when one thing fails or another. Oh, looks like it took a fuse plug out of it. All right, Bill. Let's see. All righty. I mean, I do get. Oh Oh goodness. What a beautiful view. Look at that. I mean, now this is before they had the terraced seats in the hills because they didn't start doing that until 2002. But before that, you just kind of basically had like it's a lot like most sport is now, where you just have a lot of big open hills you sit on. I'm probably sitting right underneath that Pepsi billboard on that main part. That's right around the seats we used to have there on the main stretch. And you get a good view from the opposite end where the big stands are now, but those stands there, those were like some of the best seats. I'll tell you what, because the entrance to turn 11 is like right behind you. They're close enough that you can hear them come up behind you, see them go into turn 11. You had a much better view of turn 11 back then too, of course. And then coming around, and then they're like right in front of you. They're playing chicken with the inside wall there. And sometimes they wouldn't they wouldn't work out there. Somebody would bang wheels. You'll see in this one too. I think Jeff Burton comes to grief at one point here and tags the wall there on the front stretch. Um, you have a lot of good viewing areas there. You take the good with the bad. I'm glad they got rid of those bridges because those bridges were really rickety. They were like old wood bridges and they swayed a lot. So when you had like a lot of traffic up there and people standing shoulder to shoulder, it was like about as wide as you can maybe get two people side to side up there, if that. But then like a little bit of a breeze would make it rock a little bit. So the tunnels are definitely an improvement. But I do miss those stands because there you go. There's the souvenir area behind it, and then you had the main grandstands there. By 2000, we are on the very edge of it, like the far left side of it, and there's a little gap between that timing and scoring building, which I don't know if they even use anymore, and the main grandstands. You can see the cars coming by that way, so you get some great views there. Good times, good times. It's still the home track. I still love Sears Point there, but I wish they had stands back there again because that whole area doesn't get really used for anything anymore. Like that whole area just stays like wide open. They had like some drift cars go through there before. Like it's enough area to do that. And nowadays they have like the souvenir haulers over there, I guess, but there's so few of those now that you still have kind of some wasted space. So I don't know. Just my 2 cents on that one. But love the view there from that one. That was always really cool. Do 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 do. Okay. Let's see here. Takes on the silly season move so far. Oh, yeah, we talked a little bit about the Ricky Stenhouse Jr. deal there earlier. I didn't really offer my thoughts on that, but it's I think Stenhouse is kind of an interesting personality. He's kind of reminds me a lot about Ernie Irvan back in the day, being good at the plate races and also good at just stirring up stuff out there. I know he's not going to be your favorite driver if he's wrecking your favorite driver, so I get that. Um, Ernie was certainly a driver that kind of ruffled a lot of feathers there, but you need drivers like that. And if we hear this so often with Kyle Busch in particular, we say like, oh, well, you need a driver like Kyle Busch out there that's going to play the heel and people boo all the time. But okay, if you need that, then you also need a Stenhouse out there. I'm not saying you need a whole field of Stenhouses, like that would be a little out of control, but you need at least one guy out there. Now, at the same time, Stenhouse has, a big investment into World of Outlaws and stuff like that, and so if he prefers that, then that's just his decision on there. And I know we're at a point now in the musical chairs of the season that maybe the rides that are left over aren't really up to that caliber of the Roush Fenway ride and all that. But I mean, I'd like to still see him out there, but if he decides to just commit to World of Outlaws, kind of like Casey Kane is, and so forth, I can certainly see why he would. But it would be unfortunate. I think he's fun to watch. He can be frustrating sometimes, but again, he's not an unusual personality. We've seen that with Irvin. We've seen that with other competitors before, even early Kyle Busch, before he kind of evolved into whatever he is now. I'll take that over somebody that's like that. Oh yeah, Pepsi 400 qualifying. Oh gosh, that's right. The wildfires. They pushed that to October. Gosh, that was such a weird stretch, and that pretty much doomed Mark Martin's championship. That and blowing up an engine at the Southern 500 that year because he was keeping for the historic season that Gordon was having. Mark Martin was having probably his best career season, even though he was really good in 2002. He was really good in 2009. He was really good in 1990. In 1998, he was having a really good season. The problem was that Gordon was having a great season. I think it was Greg Fielden or somebody pointed out that way, and it was really well put. that was the difference. And Jarrett was up there. Jarrett had a really good year. You see him up there in the quality care car. Um, a lot of good competitors that were up there. But yeah, those two, I mean, all the plate races were bad. I mean, you're right about that bad booking, but especially those last two there. We crashed in both of them there, and Gordon just cruised. So that was pretty much the end of that deal. There's the old Buzz McCall entry, the number 96 Caterpillar Chevrolet. That was always a nice looking ride. That's a throwback that they haven't run yet. I mean, you think Caterpillar, you think the Ward Burton's car, like Jeb Burton ran a few years ago, but that was a different deal there. They ended up being contenders for the NASCAR championship that season. It was, I believe, it was Craven that edged Green there that season. You'd think that David Green would do well, but again, there was a long trend of that where if you were like really good in the Busch series and you got up to Cup, you just weren't quite able to be at the same level as everybody else. But look at just how many cars we're seeing in here. I mean, they're getting all these different, these different teams that are out there. We got a 43 car starting grid. We already had a couple people fall out, but we're kind of seeing a lot of the guys out there, so it gives you a chance to talk about them. I mean, nowadays, we're trying to find like shots of like the Jack Daniels car that Austin Dillon ran. I think they did like one shot of it the entire race. And that's a competitor that he's driving the 3 car. You think he would get a whole lot of exposure, but I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think if you have interesting personalities, and if you have a willingness to discuss those personalities, I don't think it's going to matter if you have one guy that's kind of a loose, a loose wheel there. Again, I think Irvin's a perfect example of that. I mean, It's really easy to forget because of how revered he is now, and as kind of an elder statesman and all the stuff that he's gone through in his career. But there was a time in like the early '90s where people just straight up hated him. And I never got that because my first exposure to Irvin was here in 1992 when he went from last to first, and that was incredible. I don't care who you are. That was amazing accomplishment there. So I'm not saying like a complete complete just complete pain and anything like that. But I mean, a guy out there that just kind of stirs things up a little bit, that reflects on every other driver out there, and that kind of helps bring out the personalities in them. I think we've all been trying to kind of struggle to figure out what the good combination is that's going to kind of bring us back to that. Um, and I think what you don't want to do is you don't want to block any personalities from getting in there. You don't want to create some kind of barrier to that. But just kind of but I think of course we've all had trouble figuring out like what needs to be done to actually bring that about, because you have a lot of competitors that are either very professional or very reserved or a little bit too polished or anything like that. I'll take somebody that's controversial over somebody that's just kind of boring. I mean, quite honestly. But yeah. Well, that's true. That's true. I mean, and Neil Bonnet's thing. Well, Neil Bonnet, the thing with him is, and I've said this before with Junior getting back in the Bush series and stuff like that. Is just getting back in the car over and over again, and you have these competitors that do that, and you can tell that Neil loved to compete no matter what, under any circumstance there. The accident at Darlington was terrible. That really was in that situation, to say the least. I mean, it put him out of the car for a long time, and you can tell that much that troubled him as well. As you see, Jeff Burton has now broken the barrier on the front stretch there. But it's unfortunate that when you have competitors like that want to keep going out there, but they probably shouldn't. And it's one thing. Now I draw a distinction though. It's not just an age thing. Like I know a lot of people point at Morgan Shepherd or maybe other competitors like that out there that they shouldn't keep going out there. But there's physical tests that you pass and everything, and if you've passed that, I mean, I don't care how old you are, you go out there and you compete. Like I've said many times since that Darlington race, like if I have bronchitis, you can't roll me out of bed. Old Morgan goes out there and runs 27 laps at Darlington. I mean, the dude just wants to go out there and just do what he can. But with Neil Bonnet, I mean, if you have several concussions and you get to a point, we saw this actually with Ernie Irvan. I mean, this ended up going full circle with him when he had all those concussions. He had the serious accident in Michigan, and he came back out there, and then he had another wreck at Michigan in 1999 that doesn't get talked about that much. He just said enough is enough, and it's like, look, I mean, the interview, I was looking it up during the Nadeau interview, of the Nadeau project. He was saying, like, look, if I could go out there and keep competing, but if I have another accident like the one I had in Michigan, I might not be able to, do anything in life. I might not, it may either cost him his life, or it would just prevent him from enjoying it as well as he could. And this is where you have competitors like Dale Jr. and stuff out there, and where I'm a little hinky about him still doing bush races out there with the concussions he's had. I don't know if they've been nearly as serious as what Ernie Irvan had, or what Neil Bonnet had prior to his wreck in 1994. But when it gets to that point there, I think that's the part where probably would be best to just kind of just stay out of it and do that. But that's such a personal decision. I mean, that's just a matter of preference, because I've seen how much it's affected drivers like Ernie Irvan, and how it cost Neil Bonnet his life. And of course this comes up in the Jerry Nadeau video as well. How it cut short Jerry Nadeau's career, how it cut short Steve Park's career. They know that they just can't come back out there, and they're just not up to that level anymore. Junior is very fortunate. I'm glad that he's come through it as well as he has, given unbelievable circumstances. And then to top it all off, having the plane crash and everything recently on top of all of that. I mean, my goodness. I mean, how much more? Well, I'm not even going to say it. That's a whole lot. It's a whole lot for anybody to be going through. But my point, I'm going a long route on this. I'd be perfectly happy if Junior just focused on his broadcasting career and all that, and just didn't drive again. I think that would be great, because there's a lot of it's a very brutal profession that we've seen a lot of drivers that maybe stay in it a bit too long, or they have situations like that happen. And whether it's Neil Bonnet or Jerry Nadeau or Steve Park or anything like that, you'd hope to see that less than back then. It's a good thing that cars are, much safer than they used to be. I mean, that's definitely a big factor in it too. And so I think whether, in any of those circumstances, Junior is certainly in a better position than a lot of those other competitors were. It's easy to forget, back in 2000 in particular. I mean, the centrality of Dale Earnhardt's death, it's easy to forget everything that happened before that and after that. Not just the accidents that claimed Kenny Irwin's life and Adam Petty and Tony Roper, but then Blaze Alexander afterwards, and all that. It was a very risky time. So, we certainly hope that, that's the case there. That, different, knowing when to step away it's a really personal decision. You hope that things would work out on that. But, yeah. But I think Junior is finding his footing in the booth, which is really good to see. And he, he's certainly not going to have any trouble, gaining any popularity in the booth there. So that's been good to see. Let me see here. Okay, I don't need that. We had the timer go off, so we should be at any moment now hearing back on the technical inspection results. Although it's probably still going to be quite a while before we get to that point. Uh-oh, I make sure I didn't close the stream out. Okay, there we go. Yeah, exactly. I mean, reading your comment there, Ultimate 23 Dragon. Yeah, same deal. I mean, these are racing deals, and it's unfortunate to view it that way, because of course, in some cases, an accident like this could happen, and Jeff Burton walks out of the car and he's okay. In other cases, the same exact accident could have very serious effects if somebody has, like, a pre-existing injury, or something just goes sideways and then it becomes more serious than it is. Yeah, the same thing. I mean, Ernie Irvan's role in the accident with Neil Bonnet, I mean, certainly it wouldn't have happened if not for the contact he had with Schrader there. But who's to say that it couldn't have been that accident, and then Neil Bonnet was running 10 cars back, and we don't talk about it at all. Who knows? But yeah, the Sterling Marlin thing with Dale Earnhardt, or Jaco Majacova with Bobby Allison, very similar circumstances, just extremely tragic circumstances that they surely would have avoided if they knew how serious it turned out to be. But unfortunately, that's just what racing is. I mean, it's, again, the sport by nature, it just has things happen that you just can't count on, and that's it's the unfortunate reality of it. Yeah, exactly. But the Busch Series wreck, yeah, for Irvin. I mean, my goodness. I mean, it's it's so good nowadays that, I mean, I think a lot of younger fans, they can't really understand that, where you would have drivers that get injured and they just can't compete anymore. And I think that's the fact that Junior retired under those circumstances with the concussions he was dealing with, why that was so earth shattering, just beyond his popularity. The fact that it had been a while, really, since we had something like Jerry Nadeau's accident or Steve Parks and all that, or Ernie Irvin's. It's thankfully rare, but no less serious. And we talk, and it goes full circle to what we're talking about with, like, the heat issues and everything in the cars too. It's the full circle. You got to make sure that all those are getting as much attention as possible. But you certainly hope that, yeah, it's not as common as it certainly once used to be. Oh, the Hot Wheels car would be cool, really cool one to see. Actually, on a different note, there, it'd be great to see like the 44 car scheme run back out there. You never know. A lot of different petty cars out there that have run over the years. Again, I'd love to see Georgia Pacific car come back, even though it's not a throwback to that long ago. I just love the way that looked. They were originally going to have like the Kyle Petty numbers, and then they separated them out. So the kind of numbers kind of like two big sailboats. I don't know. It just looked kind of neat to me. Had a neat look to it. Ah, whoop, whoop. I'm sure we should be pretty close to a call right now. Any minute now. Do 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 do. Let me see. Points reset, inspection. Okay, nothing clear on that. Pockris posted a playoff standing about 23 minutes ago, so we don't have anything new on that. Yeah, all 16 cars. Yeah, it's going to take longer, so we'll just stick with it here. We'll do some more trivia here in a little bit, and who knows? We'll see if we get through the whole race here. We've been pretty close. I think there was one we did. I think it was the one for Vegas, where we were pretty close to actually the finish of that one because it didn't have that many cautions. So I wasn't really paying attention to it in the background there. I didn't mean to cut it off like right before the end of the race, but we'll do that. Hey, use a 1-900 number for NASCAR. I mean, there's one. Does that even work anymore? Let's try that. I'm sure these 900 numbers have gone the way of the dodo, so you probably don't have them anymore. Let's see. All right, here we go. 1-900 5 SCAR. Okay, here we go. Let's find out.
The call you are attempting to place is not allowed from this line.
Oh,
Please dial 611.
Okay, well, all right. Well, we tried. So yeah, I think I probably get that from just about any 900 number now. I wonder if there must have been some act of Congress or something that came about that banned those, because it used to be those were everywhere, and then you had the internet, and that pretty much doesn't exist anymore. It's yeah. So the NASCAR 900 number most definitely not in existence anymore. It's not allowed from this line. Oh my goodness. Well, thank heavens that they stopped that. Okay, let's jump into some more trivia here as we see Rick Nigel Mast going around the track. His team was nicknaming him Nigel because he actually had a good qualifying run for this race that year. And I think he had a good finish too, if I remember correctly. It seemed like he was up there for a while, but good on him. Alrighty, let's go back to the wild card again on this one. What branch of the military did Bill France Jr. serve in? Hey, how about this? Yeah, as if somebody else can get through. Exactly. That's weird. I don't know. Maybe if I tried from a landline, it would go through, but I don't really do that. So, yeah. All right. What branch of the military did Bill France Jr. serve in? Marine Corps? Any other guesses? Air Force? Marines? Bill France Jr. served in the military. Wow, they messed up that wall hard. I don't remember this caution lasting this long, but obviously they broke the wall. They got to do something with that. All righty, here we go. The answer is the Navy. How about that? Not the Marine Corps, the Air Force, or the Coast Guard. The Navy. I did not know that. All righty. Let's get some other ones. All righty. What year featured Richard Petty's Farewell Fan Appreciation Tour? Okay, we got an easier one again. What year featured Richard Petty's Farewell Fan Appreciation Tour? 1992. Okay, 92. Yep, yeah, of course. The 1992 Fan Appreciation Tour, which, as I mentioned during Darlington, I actually did ask him about it, if J.D. McDuffie's accident had any reason for his decision to call it. He didn't say when exactly the decision was made, but he was very firm in saying the decision was already made before August 11th of 91. So take that as you mean it on that for sure. The announcement came after JD's accident, but the decision was sometime before. So a little bit of interesting details with that. Next wildcard question. What year in the 70s did Richard Petty go winless? What year in the 1970s did Richard Petty go winless? What year in the 70s? From 1970 to 1979. 1978 is the first guess. Any other guesses for what year in the 1970s did Richard Petty go winless? 78? Believe the crowd is right. We got several votes for 78. And the answer is indeed 1978, as you see Dale Earnhardt come down pit road. All right. How many kids did Mama and Papa Flock have to feed in the 30s? All right, so I guess how many? It's a roundabout way of asking how many flock kids were there. How many kids did Mama and Papa Flock have to feed in the 30s? 8 is one guess. 8 is another guess. And your guess is 4, 6. The answer 7. Another guess. The answer is 10. My goodness, everybody had the under. How about that? 10. My goodness. So many flocks. My gosh. Alrighty. Anything else on the call here? Checking this again. We're going to be running long here tonight, folks, but bear with us, and we'll get ready on that. Oh, 29 seconds ago, we have a call, ladies and gentlemen. We do have a call. All playoff cars have cleared tech. No issues. Chase Elliott is the winner. Byron car to research and development. No penalties to come from that. So Chase Elliott is your race winner. Eric Jones is your last place finisher. This called by Pockrass 29 seconds ago. We do have a call, and Eric Jones is your last place finisher. So he will get 2 straight NASCAR articles on his way out of the playoffs for this season. And so no additional calls on that. So let's do one more trivia question here. Okay. Now this is an interesting one. We'll wrap this one up here with this one, and we'll clear it up here. How many of the 34 drivers named Smith have NASCAR Winston Cup wins through 1997? So there are 34 drivers with the last name Smith, and how many of the 34 have NASCAR Winston Cup wins through 1997? Through 97. So no Regan Smith, but how many of the other ones through 1997? There are 34 drivers. Of those 34, how many of them had wins through 1997? Last question tonight. 10, 2, 8, 0. Any other guesses? We're going to hit the button here in just a moment. The answer is 2. Bad booking. You got it, man. 2. So there's Jack Smith, because he won, I think, because he won the Southern 500, if I remember correct. Or did he win the other Darlington race? Well, there we go. So 2 of them. So 2 Smiths through 1997, one in the Cup Series. Not Stanley Smith, I guess. No, good guess. You had a good guess there. Okay, so again, in the meantime, that'll do it for the disqualification show this week. Thank you so much for tuning in. Again, check out NASCAR Man's video, Freak, the truck that wouldn't die, that's already available on YouTube. And stay tuned tomorrow at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern for the premiere of Jerry Nadeau, the Fury from Danbury. That video is going to be posted on my YouTube channel. Be free to jump in on the chat on that. Again, a 48-minute video on that, so that's going to be a lot of content there. I'd be very interested to get the interesting thing for that video. In the meantime, the website is lastcar.info. Patreon is patreon.com/lastcaronbrock. If you join for just as little as $1, you can watch the Jerry Nadeau video even now and not have to wait for the preview for the premiere. And the website is, what the heck? 48? Okay. I lost my train of thought. And the Twitter is @LastCarOnBrock. Yeah, I can't forget about that. So stay tuned for the articles later tonight. We're going to do the J.G. Haley article as well as the Eric Jones article. We'll get those posted. And in the meantime, stay tuned next week for the action in Dover. We'll be back at the other location for that show. And we'll stay tuned until then. So thank you again for tuning in. And we'll see you next week for more action.